There we go. All right, we are live. Good Tuesday morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to Weather Center Live. This is Weather Center Nazario coming at you for our 9 o'clock Eastern Standard Time tropical update across the Northern Hemisphere. We will be talking a little bit about the East Pacific. We have a bit more activity going on out there. It's favored in the East Pac currently, and the Atlantic remains very, very quiet, extremely quiet. You could metaphorically or hypothetically hear a meteorological pin drop out there across the Atlantic. Want to go ahead and immediately extend a sincere apology to everybody who was waiting for the 8 p.m. live stream yesterday evening. I did not forget about you guys. In fact, I was very tense. Once severe weather struck my area in Polk County, the power went out in the flash, in the blink of an eye. Very exciting. I'm pretty sure we came very close to hurricane force winds yesterday. Very, very close to it. The thunder and lightning, the lightning strikes, cloud to ground were happening right over top of me. If you have the means of following me on my X, my TikTok, or my Instagram, I would highly encourage you do so you can see the video that I'm going to be releasing on those platforms showing exactly what had happened yesterday, just to give you guys a brief glimpse. I'm not sure if the camera on here will pick it up, but this was what had gone down yesterday. If you guys can see, extreme winds, definitely gusting above 60, maybe 70 miles an hour. This was about the time where the power went out, and you could see just the winds ripping. Winds really ripping directly out of the east. I've never seen them that fast around here, to tell you the truth. Definitely felt like a mini hurricane, a mini cane, as I put in the community post yesterday. And what had ended up happening was we had our sea breeze fronts firing on both coastlines, with outflows from previously developed and collapsed thunderstorms also in the mix. So it's just the nature of the beast. When those outflow boundaries and the sea breeze fronts collide, they just send all that momentum, all that energy straight up in the atmosphere, create these very strong thunderstorms in the flash of an instant, in the blink of an eye, and then all that momentum that goes up has to come back down, and it literally just blew out right on top of us. Barbecue was lofted, full gas grill. That's how strong the winds were, and that thing's heavy. It's a 2-person, 3-person lift, and that thing was moved at least 10, 15 feet in my backyard. Yesterday was trash day, so it was fun looking at all the other neighbors picking up their garbage, picking up their recycling bins, trying to determine, is that mine? Is that mine? Is that mine? Unfortunately, there was a child's house that had gotten ripped apart. I guess they had left it out in their backyard, and it was just destroyed. And yeah, so I didn't forget about you guys. I'm sincerely sorry that I couldn't make it, but unfortunately, the power was out. We got nuked yesterday. But we're here now. We're going to rock and roll, and there really isn't too much to discuss, but enough to discuss to, I guess, make light of what's going on out there. So good morning, everybody. Thank you very much for tuning in today. Let's go ahead and get started. So this is a look at our full disc east GO satellite imagery, and you could see the Atlantic extremely quiet. We still have these fairly good-looking tropical waves. They'll get their turn. These tropical waves that continue to come off of Africa, they're looking very good. It's just right now we are definitely beyond the point of no return. There is no life support for those things as they wander across the main development region. They're just going to die, and they're going to suffocate, not only due to Saharan dust, but also extensive sinking. You can kind of see all through here, there is almost like no cloud cover whatsoever. And that's very, very indicative. Even down in the Caribbean and the Gulf of Mexico, there's just nothing out there. There's really nothing worth talking about. And, I've been seeing, in between my live streams and my content, because I've been doing a lot more research in the background than I am content right now. Thankfully, I'm able to catch up, and I actually have a few things I want to unveil to you guys that I can personally admit I was actually reading wrong this entire time, and as a result of doing some extra homework, I'm going to go ahead and get you guys up to speed on some new predictions and some new ideas that I have for what's going to be happening at the tail end of this month, and particularly into August. But right now, there's other people out there still saying, we got to watch this, we got to watch this, we got to watch this. There's nothing to really watch. There's nothing to watch. Like I said at the very beginning of this live stream, you could hear a metaphorical atmospheric pin drop out there across everywhere. The Caribbean, the Lesser Antilles, the Greater Antilles, Central America, South America, if you look at this satellite imagery, Mexico, there's just nothing out there. There's really nothing out there. So I have a feeling that a lot of the other content creators are more or less ab-libbing, trying to get you guys to click and click and click. That's why I went against the grain and I put in the thumbnail, where are the hurricanes? Where's the hyperactiveness? What's going on? Is it a bust? No, it's not a bust. In fact, we're probably looking at the biggest piece of normality for this hurricane season right now. Here's a look at our National Hurricane Center homepage. No tropical cyclone activity is expected for the next 7 days. And in fact, I'd probably extend that to about the next 14 to 21 days. We might be looking at a period of maybe 2 to 3 weeks where we're not going to see much of anything. And like I said, I'm going to explain to you why it is that I'm readjusting my own internal forecast here after doing a lot of very extensive research on a few other parameters and other diagrams that we're going to be using on this channel going forward. In the East Pac, we do have a nice little invest area here, not really doing anything, but it's at least a nice orange blip to look at. So definitely not a big concern. EP 92, exciting. Whoa, they're only at 92. We've already gone all the way through to 96. So you can already tell the difference in activity between the Atlantic and the Eastern Pacific. Right now, for the month of July, we are favored to see activity out there in the Eastern Pacific. So this makes sense. Obviously, they're going to go up and out. They're not going to play a role in anyone's weather. They're probably not even going to get picked up by the monsoon out over the southwest and the desert southwest and be pulled up, because sometimes that'll happen in the Eastern Pacific as well. You'll get development off of Central America or southern Mexico, and then because of that anticyclonic ridge that's out there driving the monsoon pattern for Arizona, New Mexico, the Four Corner states, they'll get sheared apart and pulled up into the monsoon, and it'll cause flash flooding in Arizona, New Mexico, parts of Southern California, sometimes getting into Las Vegas, Nevada, near Nellis and Creech Air Force Base. I did a lot of forecasting for events like that. But in this case, not going to happen. It's still only at a 40-40 split of development. That's like the only thing that we're going to be able to talk about over the coming days, to tell you the truth. It is just that quiet. Here's a look at our Saharan dust map. And, to tell you the truth, the only concerning bit about this that has a lot of people talking behind the scenes, you guys may think we're dead, we're busted, we're not going to do anything. Wrong. I'm going to tell you big time that's wrong. We actually have a lot of big brains, bigger than my brain, in tropical meteorology talking behind the scenes right now, and they're actually getting a little more concerned about the hurricane season, because these are the same preliminary signs we saw back in two of our very infamous analogs, 2005 and 2020. They've been doing a lot of comparing and contrasting what the July climatology looked like for the hurricane season in 2020 and in 05. And right now, looking at just the way our upper air pattern is set up, looking at the currents and the oscillations throughout the North Atlantic Ocean on the northern hemispheric side, looking at the Canary Current, the North Atlantic Gyre, looking at our PNA, our NAO structuring, the Gulf Stream, the Caribbean, looking at our AMM, all the different teleconnections and oscillations. I'm not going to get fully into that, but this, just take a breather. That's all I'm saying. Please, if you're out there telling people nothing's going to happen, then that's wrong. Please don't. No. Sorry. Because the last time we saw as extensive of a Saharan dust outbreak like this, given the upper air pattern over the Atlantic, over North Africa, that was in 2020. That was before all heck broke loose in 2020. So a lot of folks are actually trying to bring 2020 above 2005 as one of our more back-end fateful analogs. And if you look here on windy.com, we're using Windy right now, so I can kind of more or less paint the picture for you guys so you understand what's going on. So if you look over Africa, we have a giant anticyclone right here. This is our 850 millibar winds. This anticyclone is what's drawing our Saharan dust. The reason we have an anticyclone here is because of our Saharan heat low. And what a heat low is the surface of the Earth gets so hot that you get what's called a thermally induced area of low pressure. Obviously, we all know how convection works. When the surface of the Earth or anything gets hot, naturally we get lift. And what's happening is, because Africa is so hot, that's what's producing our Saharan heat low. That cyclonic circulation closest to ground level then induces its own area of anticyclonic rotation, kind of like what happens on the inside of a tropical cyclone. You get low pressure in the low levels, and you have that anticyclonic outflow as a result of that lift over top the storm. Obviously, we're not talking a tropical cyclone, so no one out there use wordplay on me and say, oh, this guy doesn't know what he's talking about. He's saying hurricanes over Africa. I'm so tired of the wordplay. That's not what I'm saying here. I'm trying to get you guys to understand what it is I'm trying to paint here. So we have our anticyclone over the northwest quadrant of Africa, and we also still have the glaring elephant in the room, our enormous subtropical high pressure over the Atlantic, centered right about here, pretty much dead center of the North Atlantic. And you can see just this tremendous pressure gradient between our Saharan heat low and our Bermuda Azores high driving all that dust. I'm looking right through here. This little low-level jet, this lopsided, horizontally moving low-level jet that's just sucking all the dust off of Africa thanks to those tropical waves, all the tropical waves that are still forming up out there and moving off into our intertropical convergence zone is what's kicking up all that Saharan dust on top of the Saharan heat low, just kind of stirring the pot. It's kind of like a big dust bowl, if you will. Everything's just shaking around, and because of that strong thermally and pressure gradient-induced wind field here, that's what's pulling all that dust across the Atlantic. And I'm telling you right now, guys, this is going to come back to bite us in the butt. I am not so sure we're going to see 22 named storms. I'm still on the fence about that. You know, you guys who've been watching me from the very beginning, I don't like to talk numbers this early in the hurricane season. We're only to July 15th. In reality, even though we've had a Category 5 and we've already had multiple landfalls, we're still only maybe like 1/4, 1/5 of the way through the season. So for you guys out there who just want to cancel it, go do that somewhere else, because we are still way too early in the hurricane season. We're about maybe 20% there at best. And I want to tell you, regardless of the named storm count, the pattern we have over the North Atlantic and the things I'm seeing long range are going to come back to bite us in the butt. Remember the math we were doing the last couple of live streams? Even if we were to realize half of the remaining storms out there, 11, let's say instead of 22 more, we get 11 more. Half of those are going to hit somebody, regardless, just because of the math and the statistical average we see. Given the pattern, given the Enzo oscillation, the global scale of things, we're going to have people get hit. So please stop trying to cancel the season. I've been seeing it everywhere on social media. Even other meteorologists are, for some strange reason, canceling the season. Here's our Saharan dust. So as you can see here, this is what's going on. As I mentioned, using the windy overlay, you can see exactly where that wind tunnel, that low-level jet in the horizontal plane, is just ejecting large plumes of dust, enormous plumes of dust across the entirety of the Atlantic. And this is entirely normal. This is entirely normal. Truthfully, if you look back even last year during our El Nino season, we had a lot of action in June, and then as we wandered into the beginning and middle parts of July, we quieted down. We had Arlene right at the beginning, then we had Brett and Cindy. Didn't really do much because of El Nino conditions over the Caribbean and the Gulf of Mexico, but we still had those. We had Don, who was an anomaly way up into the north subtropical, almost mid-latitude Atlantic, and then we quieted down. We quieted down for a couple of weeks. We had a couple of areas of investigation that kind of went orange-red, and then they died. Could see a similar instance like that as we round out the month of July, but I don't really think we're going to see any legitimate named storm development until we get to August. This is one thing I wanted to show you. So we haven't really pulled this up too often. This is going to be our integrated vapor transport. And essentially, in layman's terms, without using the integrated vapor anomalies propagate, without all the sciencey jargon, basically this is what the winds are doing with pushing our moisture. This is where the wind flow in the deep layer atmosphere is moving all of our tropical moisture out there over the Atlantic. And the only reason I pull this up is because tropical development aside, if you look, this is what's very concerning. We have all this vapor transport occurring through the Lesser and Greater Antilles, the Bahamas. Florida's been getting it. Florida has definitely been getting it. I showed you the video at the beginning of this live stream. We've had back-to-back strong thunderstorms. National Weather Service out here, I'm almost positive, has busted twice now on these severe thunderstorms. There's no way in heck you're going to look at the video I showed you guys and try to argue and say, oh, that was like 20 miles an hour. Why would they severe warn that? Heck no. Nope. And this is going to be our prevailing pattern for an extended period of time. And you can see more or less as we've seen what's going on, this is where we're seeing a large area of our moisture or our water vapor transport according to this model. This is our European model. We can look at the European ensembles to get a further out look. We can look at the CFS. We can look at the extended GFS, whatever you guys want to put on the table. But regardless, this is why I'm saying for those of you who really just want to cancel this season, you're going to get people hurt. You're going to get people in harm's way. You could possibly get people killed because we still have a long hurricane season, and this is going to be the prevailing pattern from here on out. And you can tell. I really do not think, based on our teleconnections and the way the water temperatures are structured across the Atlantic, across the northern hemisphere altogether, even the Pacific Ocean, I really don't think we're going to suddenly see a huge flip in our pattern to where this is going to change anytime soon. We're already getting through to middle August. By middle July into August is when we start to see the slow retreat of our high pressure. And if you notice, from the start of the loop to the end of the loop, that ridge is just dominating. That ridge is just dominating over the western Atlantic, pretty much centered right over Bermuda. We have a Bermuda high. This isn't even a Bermuda Azores high anymore. This is a Bermuda high that is just planted there, folks. And look at that wind gradient. Look at that moisture gradient across the Caribbean here. That is extensive. So that's another reason why I'm not entirely sold on another 22 named storms. I think because of the overall pattern and the hot water temps, tropical cyclone activity aside, this is where a lot of our moisture for July and August is going to be shoved and bullied. So definitely worth monitoring as we get towards the back end of the month. And let's start talking science. Well, actually, first, this is a look at what's going on out there. We've had a couple of signals right here. Yesterday we had a 12Z run of the GFS. I wanted to develop something and move it in like this. Obviously, that's erroneous. I saw a couple people got excited, made videos on it. I really don't think that's what's going to happen. Plus, it's the GFS 200+ hour mark, so lots of time to get ahead of that. There's really no other agreement, but either way, that's neither here nor there. If you look at our probabilities, most of our probabilities have been keeping whatever is coming off of the West Africa coast moving up in this general fashion here, which is something we've echoed on this channel for an extended period of time now. I've said it again and again and again. I've beat that horse to death, beyond death at this point. I've brought it back to life and beat it again. That's where we're seeing a large majority of our tropical, quote, anomalies, waves, disturbances, rainfalls, whatever you want to call it. Just right now over the Atlantic, there's a big X. We just don't have the ingredients in particular at the moment for these things to do anything more than just be rainmakers as they transition across the Atlantic. But so far, we're seeing a general trend into the southeast, the mid-Atlantic, the greater Antilles. Go quickly through the GFS ensembles. You can see a little bit of support for that system over there in the Gulf of Mexico. Not a whole lot, nothing to really be concerned about. Same thing with the European model. The European model has one weak member moving right up the middle of Florida. One member, that's it. So we're really fishing here. We're fishing for anything at this point. There's nothing. Extremely quiet. Just a beyond quiet tropical basin right now. Nothing. We had one member that moved through Florida and then one random member moving towards Mexico. Both of these are erroneous. I wouldn't pay any attention to that. There is no agreement whatsoever that we're going to have tropical development. So now we're going to get whatchamacallit. It's been raining a lot in New Orleans, too. We've been having a lot of thunderstorms. Yeah, that's because of the water temps. The water temps, they're not going down as much as some people have been saying. I've been seeing a lot of conflicting information. That's another reason why I'm glad that we're not doing frequent live streams anymore, because I can sit and digest and more or less see what other folks are thinking. And there's a lot of weird information flying around right now. You know, the Atlantic is cooling. The dust is going to stop the hurricane season. You know, there's not going to be any more hurricanes. Hurricane Beryl was it. And there's just so many different things out there that are, you know, and I don't get it. Like, we're all kind of just spinning our wheels here, coming up with things to talk about, and I feel like we all just need to be saying nothing's happening, just period. Leave it at that. Nothing's happening right now. Let's calm down. We had a lot of fun. Metaphorically speaking, hypothetically speaking, look at the air quotes, guys. We had a lot of fun and excitement talking Beryl and Alberto and all that, but that's pretty much it. We're quiet for right now. Now we're going to get into some of the things I've been researching. So this is going to be our East, or I should say our Pacific North American pattern, the PNA. And all you need to know about this is essentially this kind of dictates what it is that our upper air pattern is going to look like across North America. Because as we know, North America, Canada, United States, even the western portions of the United States into the extreme eastern Pacific will dictate what happens over the Atlantic, period. You guys can argue, debate, why are you looking at the Pacific? That doesn't make any sense. It does, because everything is interconnected. So the reason we're looking at our Pacific North American pattern, the PNA, is if you look, as we approach the month of August, when things really begin to clear out, we wander back into our negative PNA and we kind of stay there. And what that means is we're going to have troughing over the west coast and we're going to have ridging over the east coast. As we all know, big bubble means that there's likely going to be a clearing of our wind shear and more rising motions down at the surface, thanks to that extended advection or that extended period of heat coming up around the ridge. So this is something I've been watching. I'm going to continue to watch it. Obviously, we don't go far enough out to see exactly what August looks like, but as you can see, we dip into that negative PNA over the next 5 to 7 days, and then if you extrapolate it forward, you can see that the green blips and the ensemble members start to bring it back down again. So we'll have to see exactly what that does as we get closer. I want to say by about the 25th, we'll get a really clear glimpse of what the first week of August will look like, and the PNA is going to dictate a lot of what happens closer to home. This is going to be our North Atlantic Oscillation, the NAO, which is essentially taking a measure of how strong our Icelandic low, as the name implies, a low pressure, a semi-permanent low pressure that hangs out near Greenland, Iceland, and just kind of stays there, meanders, in combination with our Bermuda Azores high. And when we have a positive NAO, what that tells us is that we have an excited NAO. Our pressure features out there are very strong, and we have a strong gradient between the two of them, which more or less reinforces our steering pattern. In layman's terms, this means we're going to have a dominant high pressure with dominant low pressure, keeping our jet to the north over much of the Atlantic. So our wind shear is going to come down. We're going to continue to see that dominant Bermuda Azores high pushing things towards the west. If this were down here in the negative aspect, if we saw this from a positive down into a negative, as we rolled into August, we would have a very similar setup to what we saw last year, where our Azores high was very weak. It was sandwiched up against Europe, parts of northern Africa. That would be everything going out to see Fish Storm City, hype season like we had last year. But the fact that we're going to reverse the spectrum here and go into a positive NAO, an excited North Atlantic Oscillation, that tells me that we're going to have to watch for, as I showed you here on the vapor transport, this very strong, robust high pressure. In fact, this does a pretty good job of highlighting our positive NAO. If you look in through here, this tightening gradient of winds right in through there would indicate that our high pressure down at the surface is very strong. Our low pressure up near Greenland and Iceland is very strong, so it's funneling the vapor, the water vapor, the moisture, and the wind gradient between the two very excessively over the North Atlantic. Let's see, where was I? And then this... So right here, and I've seen other sources do this, I'm going to openly, and you guys can, flame me, get mad. I'm willing to correct myself. This is what I've been preaching to you guys. I am willing to take it on the chin and admit defeat. And in this case, I'm going to. I've been reading this wrong the entire time. Not extremely wrong to where I'm giving you the wrong information. I'm still accurately explaining it, but I've been reading it wrong in terms of future symbols. I've been reading it wrong. So this entire time I've been telling you guys, yep, look at all this sinking air right here. That means, nope, nothing's going to happen. We're trapped. We have too much subsidence, unfavorable conditions, we're done. No, actually, that's not what that means. So, believe it or not, I've been researching extensively what this CHI velocity potential anomaly chart indicates. And believe it or not, this shows a upcoming very favorable environment for the tropical Atlantic. The main reason why is when you see these larger pockets of green, bluish, teal shades, what that indicates is what's happening, our rising motions are extreme. We have lots of rising air right over top that particular area. For the tropics, and as we all know with tropical cyclones, they do not like vertical wind shear. So after doing some extensive research, reading a couple papers that are written by a few meteorologists that I've actually spoken to in a couple of group chats, they have determined that you typically don't want those green or bluish anomalies right over top your AOR, because as they induce even more excessive rising motions in the atmosphere, as we all know, any kind of movement up or down, left to right, diagonally, if it's moving fast enough, it'll create wind shear. So when you have those bluish anomalies parked right over the Atlantic, believe it or not, even though we have the rising motion, that's just as unfavorable as if we had the sinking motion, because while that is rushing through, you're increasing your vertical wind shear. You're going from pressing down on the atmosphere to suddenly trying to shove it back up. And as a result, that's increasing your overall vertical shear as you ascend or go up through the atmosphere. The rising motion begins to accelerate down at the surface until it's flying, hypothetically speaking, through the mid and upper levels. So believe it or not, this is what we want to see. We want to see for tropical development, the rising motions confined to Africa and the Indian Ocean, because what that's going to do is create enough cape, enough instability, enough moisture to create very strong tropical waves, African easterly waves. Then you want them to wander out of those very rapidly rising motions into an area where there is more kind of relaxed conditions. And if you look right in through here, that's exactly what we have, especially as we go into the month of August. So this is our short range view. It doesn't look as favorable as what I'm about to show you, but if you look down through here at the end of July, our African standing wave, and the reason it's called standing, I also researched that too. It's really nothing fancy. So the African standing wave as opposed to a propagating wave just means it's not moving. It's standing still. I'm over here overthinking it, but really the African standing wave is a Kelvin wave, a Rossby wave in the extreme upper level pattern that's just not moving. It's just producing rising motion right over top that. And that's another reason why people are getting concerned that we're going to take our eyes off of the tropics and cancel the season just before we get started. This is a look at our long-range velocity potential anomaly, and look at that. Look what's happening out there over the Indian Ocean and Africa, guys. That's not a positive sign. That shows us that we're going to have some very strong tropical waves, very good moisture pushes, very good moisture influxes coming right off of Africa into the Atlantic just as we get into the climatological peak and start to rise into hurricane season. So that's not a good sign. And if you look, as we go into the month of August, we see those rising motions parked right over West Africa, and we have a neutral point to where we kind of go into an area of less wind shear, less subsidence, not as much sinking. So this shows us that we're going to have a really favorable setup, a very favorable setup. And if I come over here, you'll see it perfectly. This is day 10, day 15, and then by day 20, we're ready to rock and roll. If you look, we have an extensive, strong area of anomalous rising motion and divergence over Africa, and then that bad boy calms down right over the Atlantic. This is as we move into the beginning portions of August, we're going to be in an optimal environment. So I really do think, instead of it being the second half of July, we're going to start seeing signals. I say we give it another week and a half, and then we reevaluate where those signals are, because I have a feeling even our operational models, by the time we get right to the point of turning the calendar to August, we're going to start seeing things really pick up. And I'm getting chills thinking about it, because I have a feeling that what's going to happen, because of how hot the waters are going to get, we're going to be moving fast. We're going to be going from 0 to 100 big time. Again, I'm not talking name storms. I'm just saying we're going to have, let's put it this way. If we want to avoid more burls, this is not the way to do it. In fact, this is exactly the kind of structuring that we had with 2020. This was more or less the picture all of 2020. We had all of our sinking motions confined to South America, Central America, parts of the Caribbean, but we had wonderful optimal rising pieces over Africa and the Indian Ocean where it mattered for our tropical features. This is all brand spanking new. I'm wondering what this means. I'm wondering if this means as we go towards September, if we're going to start to see a slower trickling effect of our tropical waves. This is something I'm going to have to reinvestigate, because this is brand new. The last couple of days building up to this live stream, I hadn't seen this. This is a brand spanking new model that just released yesterday, and I haven't seen the roles switch to where we could possibly have, to tell you the truth, this doesn't look very good either. This is showing us August, September potential, not only Atlantic activity, but also gyre activity. Because if you look, our rising motions are confined right over top the Eastern Pacific, Central America, which is very reminiscent of what we saw with Alberto and Chris. Problem is, this is what spawned Dahlia last year. So I'm telling you guys, everything is still speculation at this point, but if you're not sharing this information, if you're not communicating this science-y stuff that I'm trying to throw at you, then you're not doing the right thing. You need to be doing your part in getting this information out, nudging that like button, even just telling people word of mouth. Even if you don't share this channel with people, at least be explaining it through the game of telephone and talk to folks that you come into contact with who may have the remotest inkling of wanting to hear about the weather if they live along the coast. So even this, the reversal here, that's not a good sign, because this shows me kind of like what we've been talking about, that September peak hurricane season, we could be looking at a mixed bag. We could be looking at long trackers coupled with Caribbean and Gulf of Mexico action at the same time. So anything is possible. Anything is possible. And National Hurricane Center, NOAA, CSU, all of the other big name official sources are banking that August, September, and October even are going to be busy. This is a look at our long range 0Z GFS. This goes about 800 plus hours out. You can see for the rest of July, for the most part, I mean, we get a couple of features. We have one strong feature right there on the ensembles that moves right into eastern Florida, ironically. And after that, we're still fairly quiet. But if you watch the clock, this is July 27th, July 28th, July 29th, July 30th, and as soon as we roll into August, there's August 1st. I'm going to slowly click. There's one ensemble member, there's two ensemble members, there's three, there's four ensemble members, there's five ensemble members, there's six. And notice where they're all tracking. They're all moving whatever it is that's out there. Look at them all as we get into August. We're opening up the gates, and they're all moving across very densely populated areas. I'll go back again, too. We'll go back to the beginning of August, and I'll start drawing them in. So we have one here. Let's go a little further in time. We have another one here. We have another one right there. We have more right here. Go forward in time. We'll go forward in time. Go forward in time. We have another one right here. We had another one right here. Go forward in time, go forward in time, go forward in time. We have a whole bunch on the table now. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And notice, again, all I'm doing here is I'm not showing you where these things are going to track individually. I'm showing you all so you can get an idea of what August and maybe even September would look like. Look at our prevailing trajectory here. Don't fixate too much on the pink lines. The pink lines are like our individual ensemble members, okay? The pink lines, if you will, are like looking at our individual ensemble members of the Nazario model, but the prevailing path that I want you to pay close attention to are our black lines. This is our margin of error, and notice it's a very big difference from last year. Last year, our margin of error was way out here. We had Lee, Nigel, Rena, Philippe, we had Margot, Don, everybody out to sea just hanging out in the Atlantic vacationing. Look at where all of our ensembles, ideally more or less on average, move as we go into August. This is August 12th. This is getting close to the 20-year anniversary of Hurricane Charlie. And look at where all of our ensemble members are tracking. The GFS long range is thinking we're going to be watching for something right in this corridor between Black Line 1 and Black Line 2 as we get into the beginning of August. That's why my new forecast is our signals are really going to start to pick up as we prepare to turn the calendar. So enjoy it now. Enjoy it now. You look at our long-range ensembles from the European model, our 45-day ensembles, and if you look again, we can draw these same black lines. These same black lines, more or less, right in through here and then right in through here. We have 1, 2 stray members that move off towards the west. Obviously, that's going to happen on a case-by-case basis. We'll have to watch. Once we have storms on the game board, we can start to get a bit more of an idea of what variables we're working with that'll push them right, push them left, and so on and so forth. Weaken, strengthen, all that good jazz. But the prevailing path here puts all of our Caribbean friends on alert as we go through the month of August, and then we have to watch anywhere from New Orleans through Florida, up the Mid-Atlantic and the East Coast. Period. If you look, we have no ensemble members really beyond or behind that 60-degree longitude line. And for my friends out there, and I'm saying friends sarcastically, for all my friends out there who love to say, hype fish storms, in order to be constituted as a textbook fish storm, they cannot penetrate that 60-degree longitude line. That's why, me personally, I call 2023 the hype season, because just about every single storm, like 80-90% of our storms, did not breach 60 west longitude. Tammy barely crossed it and then kicked back behind it. Lee barely crossed it and then shot straight north. Nigel did not cross it. Margot did not cross it. Don did not cross it. The moment Cindy and Brett crossed it, they died. The only one that technically crossed it was Idalia, and that was thanks to our gyre, which is what I showed you on those velocity anomalies from that northern hemispheric chart a couple of panels ago. So the key takeaway here is we're not looking at anything right now. We're not looking at anything right now. It's going to be a very boring, a very quiet next couple of weeks. In fact, I would honestly say if you guys had travel plans that were dorked up because of Alberto, Chris, Beryl, etc., start trying to readjust. Take some last-second trips. Have some fun out there. Enjoy the beach. Try to dodge the thunderstorms and the severe weather out there. But right now, the Caribbean's looking great. Florida's looking pretty great. I'm definitely looking forward to going to the beach here very soon now that my military stuff is calming down. Next weekend, want to go to the beach, go do some fishing, enjoy. Right now is the time to do it. This is like optimal summer. It's extremely hot out there, which I've spoken to a couple of you, Supercharas. I spoke to you specifically on X. That's another telltale sign that the back end of hurricane season may not be very fun for people. You got to look at the clues, folks, and that's what we've been doing during this break here. The fact that we are in an excessive heat wave right now tells me, as a up-and-coming meteorologist, we have ridging everywhere. We have a dominant subtropical ridge driving our monsoon season out there over the southwest. I've been talking to some of my old coworkers and leaders and mentors out there in Tucson, and they're getting hammered out there from the severe thunderstorms going on with the monsoon. They've had a lot of tornadic activity down there as well because of the southwest monsoon season. So that tells me we have dominant ridging. Over the East Coast, the Carolinas, Florida, we've been so hot, heat advisories, heat wave, heat indexes well above 100 degrees. We have ridging. So even though the spaghetti plots look barren, even though the GFS has no phantom storms, no random Cat 5s hitting Jamaica like we saw last year, no random hype storms, even though our charts are quiet, the game board is still set. We're already at July 16th, It is July 16th. The clock is moving. The sands of the hourglass are just going. And it's only a matter of time. And the pieces on our game board, whatever you want to call it, the atmospheric game of chess, even though we're not at check or we're not even close to checkmate, we're still moving the pieces. Mother Nature is still playing her rounds. As we go day to day, we're making our moves and enjoying the hot weather, going to the beach, taking trips. Mother Nature's also moving her pieces too, getting the pawns in place, the knights, the rooks, the bishops, etc. And we're already seeing some of the telltale signs. The waters are warming again. The Saharan dust is blowing extensively right now, as it should. It's reinforcing our high pressure across the Atlantic. That's why it is as hot as it is over the eastern United States. And we've been battling severe weather because that high pressure is dragging in all kinds of tropical moisture from the south. Our warm conveyor belt is ready and rocking and rolling over the east United States. What happens when that conveyor belt brings in a tropical system that is able to develop? The puzzle pieces are there, and they are currently moving around the game board. We don't really care right now because our queen and king are doing kosher. We're not worried about it. And I know I'm using a lot of metaphors right now, but I'm just trying to get you guys to understand without using a ton of sophisticated jargon and science that'll confuse you. Let's imagine we're playing a game of weather chess. And right now, we're kicking back like this, because we have all our pieces in play. There's nothing on the board, nothing coming at our king to where we need to worry about protecting it and watching out for checkmate. But that does not mean that Mother Nature isn't sitting across from us and playing her game as well, setting things up. So again, to reinforce what I'd been mentioning to you guys throughout this live stream and previous live streams, I'm not really worried about calculating named storms. 22 is a heck of a lot of storms still to go. Could it be realized? Absolutely. If we open up the gates in August, September, and October, just keep pumping out our storms, heck yeah, we can definitely realize that. Am I concerned about named storm numbers? No. What I'm concerned is how impactful the future storms are going to be. We could see some very, very quality tropical cyclones coming right at us before we know it. No, Kevin, I don't know where you got that from, inland hurricanes. I didn't say that. I'm saying that we have the warm conveyor belt dragging all of our tropical moisture. Remember this right here, this chart, the integrated vapor transport. If you look out there over the eastern United States, That's your conveyor belt. This would be what everyone was talking about during severe weather season in April, May, and June. This is going to continue to produce some pretty extensive severe weather, I would imagine, for the eastern United States. There's our Bermuda high, taking all of our hot air, all of our tropical moisture down here and pumping it into the United States. And the example I was using was, if we fast forward to August and September and this pattern is exactly the same, what happens when all of this warm tropical moisture turns into a developing system and gets pulled up with the west side of our high pressure? That's going to be an impactful system. Oh, I'm sorry. Never mind. Thanks, April, for the clarification. So yeah, guys, we're going to go ahead and end the live stream. I have a couple things I still have to attend to this morning, and what is this? Whatever. I have a couple things to do before starting the workday here momentarily, but yeah, that's all she wrote. Thanks everyone for watching this morning. Still kind of theorizing, still long-range forecasting. There's really nothing to watch out for over the next couple of days, couple of weeks. It looks like July is going to just remain fairly quiet. And we do have some signals, not nearly as gratuitous as I anticipated initially, but that in part, like I told you earlier, is because I was misinterpreting the charts and the data that I was trying to digest and interpolate. Now that I have a better understanding, and I'm going to continue to do my homework between live streams to get an even better and more thorough understanding of what it is that we're looking at and all the different moving variables that go into tropical forecasting, I'm going to come back better and with more accurate information every time we get on camera for everybody. Oh, Ethan's Life, thank you very much for that $1 donation, buddy. Any little bit works. I appreciate that dollar just as much as I'd appreciate $100. It means a lot. So that's that. Thank you all very much for tuning in. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, feel free to leave it in the comments section of this live stream. Drop me a line on one of my other social media platforms, Instagram, X, or TikTok. I always go about doing more routine updates and shorter updates on those platforms since they're a bit more lower threat than coming on here doing a long-term or long-form video update here on the YouTube, but you know where to find me, and I really appreciate your time, and thanks for your flexibility yesterday. That severe weather just came out of nowhere, and truthfully, with as hot and humid as it is out there, I would not be surprised if we get another round later this afternoon, early evening time of severe weather activity. Yeah, Roxanne, you're absolutely right. PM, you're right. It is far from over. I really need you guys to understand that. All the other science stuff aside, whatever other channels or sources may be telling you, we are not over yet. Not over. Even if we only realize 2 or 3 more named storms, there is 3 more named storms, okay? And that's just hypothetically speaking once again. Let's play devil's advocate and say we don't get 22 named storms, but we still have X amount of named storms to go, period. Don't worry about the numbers and all the other jargon and the titling and whatnot. The fact is, it is only July 16th. We've already technically had a lot of activity. We had a record-breaking storm already. So it goes to show that if the cards are right, we are going to see more of that kind of activity. Even if we don't make 22 named storms, think about that. Use common sense. 22 named storms is the forecast. So even if we realistically bust, let's say 22 is way too excessive, the chance of us getting anything less than another 10 to 12 named storms is practically zero. We will at least, if we were to play devil's advocate and say that every other official source out there with the 20-plus named storm forecasts are wrong, we're still going to see at least another dozen named storms out there. And given the dynamics and the pattern and the ocean temps, the structuring of our ocean temps, our teleconnections, half of those, if not 60 to 65% of those future upcoming storms are going to hit somebody. Could be the Caribbean, could be the Lesser Antilles, could be Central America, could be Mexico again, could be Florida, could be Texas, could be the Mid-Atlantic state. But looking mathematically at the situation, like we've done a few times already, someone's going to get hit. We're not done yet. So definitely just save your time. That's kind of what I wish I could comment on some of these other channels. These other channels, they keep pumping out videos and updates, and it looks like we're still active. It kind of blows my mind. I'm sitting here, scrolling YouTube and social media just for fun on break from work or in between doing other things, and I still see updates like, watch this, incoming, this is happening, and I'm thinking to myself, what's happening? I'm extremely bored right now. There's nothing. What's going on somewhere? Did I miss something? And no, but that's the content creator game. You got to pay to play. You got to do something to get your viewers to click on your video. If not, nothing's going to happen. So I get it. At the same time, it's like night and day difference. You have other channels, myself included, and other reliable channels mentioning to you guys, yeah, there ain't nothing happening, have fun. And then you have other channels who are like, watch this, look out. And it's like night and day. One side of the spectrum, there's nothing happening. The other side of the spectrum, we haven't calmed down at all. We still have imminent threats everywhere. And, model data aside, if you look at the satellite, I can't see anything anywhere that there's an imminent threat, period. And if I'm being realistic, I don't count these small pop-up thunderstorms that are going on in random corners of our AOR as big-time threats. Those are not big-time threats. This is a very quiet pattern. This is an extremely quiet pattern. And the fact that we still have our really good waves coming off of Africa, we just got to give it some time. Once the background state of the atmosphere gets better, then these guys are going to have a chance to execute, and we're going to see them going everywhere. They're going to be all over the place. So that's it. That's it. CKS 57 Udo, I agree. My gut tells me that this is probably going to be Florida's year. We're going to have another August storm. I can feel it in my bones at this point that Florida is going to see something in August. Florida will see something in August. I can just feel it. I can feel it emanating, resonating through me at this point. But alrighty, guys, 9:46. I got to go ahead and kind of abruptly end this live stream. Thank you very much for tuning in. I hope you've had a great start to your week. It's Tuesday now. I know I missed you on Monday, but still, happy belated Monday and happy Tuesday. Have a wonderful rest of your afternoon. Get some breakfast, get some coffee, enjoy the workday, whatever it is that you may have going on in your corner of the world. Just know that the Weather Center is here for you. Got your back through the rest of this hurricane season, and we'll see you next time. Probably going to do another live stream tomorrow morning or tomorrow evening, depending on what I have going on to make up for Monday. And now, Monday, Wednesday, Friday is our usual time frame, so I will probably see you guys back tomorrow, and we'll see. I'll keep you updated. If there really isn't much to talk about, then we might just skip it. I may do like a short form video or something like that. We'll see. But either way, until next time, guys, this is Weather Center Nazario, signing out.